Hello and welcome to the Now Spinning Magazine podcast with me, Phil Aston. I've been really lucky recently to talk to some great drummers from the world of rock music. I've spoken to Chester Thompson, Carl Palmer, Simon Kirke, Corky Lane, Russell Gilbert, and now I can't believe my luck. I'm actually going to talk to Carmine Appice, one of my favourite drummers.
Oh, thank you.
And I must say before we start, because when I was introduced to you as a musician, it was actually because being in the UK, I was listening to Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin and all those kind of bands. And there were two compilation albums. I hope this is okay there was this one, The Age of Atlantic,
Oh,
which,
yeah. Okay.
which had a song on it called Need Love, by
Oh,
a band
really?
called Vanilla Fudge from the album Rock and Roll.
Wow.
And the other one was called the Great First Festivals of the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
there
it.
was
I think it was Parchment Farm with Cactus.
that's
Yeah.
it. And I remember I was getting into all this new music, and there were two songs on that called No Need to Worry and
Right.
Parchment Farm by a band called Cactus.
Right.
And those two tracks just blew my mind, really. There was that blues guitar on the first part by obviously, the great guitarist, the original guitarist in Cactus. But the second track, Parchment Farm, was like, I don't know if you agree, that was like the template for tracks like Hot for Teacher by Van Halen years
Yeah.
later, wasn't it?
Without a doubt, because that's exactly what Alex told me.
Yeah.
That was the template for that. And, it's funny because Billy Cobham, who's a great drummer, a friend of mine, he had a track on his solo album. I can't remember the name of it.
Quadrant 4 off
Yeah,
Spectrum.
it was fast like that.
Yeah.
And people were arguing. They were saying, "Wow, that's the first fast double bass drum track." And then I had my fans say, "No, it's not." I said, "Parchment Farm was 2 years before that." And but Billy's a friend of mine too. But all those drummers you mentioned are friends of mine, by the way. They're all
Well,
great people and great drummers, every one of them.
because you're a bit like when I spoke to Carl Palmer. Your very early years, you were classically trained, weren't you? You came from a
Well, yeah. I mean,
yeah
I took lessons, and in school I majored in music in high school, so I played with the orchestras, the band, and I played the snare drum and read the music. I played the bass drum, the cymbals,
yeah
all that orchestral stuff. And then I was in everything that was musical in high school, from the marching band to the jazz band. They didn't have rock bands in those days. And the orchestra, which had no strings, the orchestra was just brass.
yeah
It was like 30-piece orchestra with brass, and then they had the full orchestra that had some brass and strings and percussion and all that stuff. So I did all that stuff. And I majored in music. I had a music theory class I went to, which actually taught me to play chords and everything, which helped me write "Do You Think I'm Sexy" in the later days.
yeah. Because a lot of for guitarists around that time, everyone was influenced by the blues, weren't they?
Yes.
But
Yes.
for a lot of drummers, it was jazz, and that was the same for you, wasn't it? With Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa.
Yep. Yeah. Without a doubt. People ask me like, "Hey, what's your first album?" They expect me to say like a Beatles.
Yeah,
The Beatles blew my mind. A lot of drummers. Like I remember Brian Tishy's telling me he saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, went out and bought their album. For me, Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa, it was their first compilation together, I think, and I bought it, and it was. I was always amazed. That was the first time that they were just getting into photography where you can have both drum sets on there, and one drum set stand would be over the other ones. It was superimposing, and
yeah.
I could never understand like how'd that stand get in front of his bass drum like that, and you still see the bass drum behind. It was interesting, but man, I knew every note on both Buddy's album and his son. Each had a side, and then they played together. I knew every note on the whole record. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, because I think because Bill Ward from Black Sabbath was also jazz, and I think it gave the early kind of rock music, well, actually from your generation, a sense of natural swing in the playing that really complemented the kind of more kind of 12-bar blues as rock music.
Yeah, right. And it's been like that. And then it went from that to R&B, like Motown and
Yeah, of course.
Atlantic, James Brown and Aretha Franklin and Wilson Pickett and all that stuff. And I used to play that all the time. But another influence of mine was amazing was Cozy
Cozy Powell.
Cole.
Oh,
Cozy
yeah.
Cole.
Cozy Cole.
I was Cozy Powell's influence.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
But Cozy Cole, he had a song called Topsy Part 2.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear that?
No, I've not heard that.
Go
no.
like his low voice was Topsy Part 2, and they go bam with the bam bam and then and then they took a little solo. That was a hit single. And then you had Teen Beat by Sandy Nelson.
Yeah.
Did you hear Teen Beat?
Yeah, I've heard that. I know that. Yeah.
Another one. So my dream was to have a hit single. And Cozy Powell beat me to it. He had that Dance with the Devil song, But
yeah,
that was my
that's true.
Was my whole dream was to have a hit single and bring the drums out front like Gene Krupa did, So, but I really learned a lot from Gene Krupa, especially the Gene Krupa movie, about twirling the sticks and just being an entertainer on the drums,
Yeah, because wanting to have a hit single, obviously, Vanilla Fudge actually felt as if they took hit singles and then they morphed into something totally different, and you had hits with them all over again.
We basically rewrote them.
Yeah, and slowed everything down.
Yeah, I mean, Holland Dozier Holland were
great
writers for those, and we went to an event with them, and they told me, said, of everyone that ever covered that song, Vanilla Fudge's cover was the most amazing cover of that song, because he said it wasn't a cover. It's like you rewrote the song.
Yeah, and just kept the lyrics.
Thank
yeah.
you.
And then and over the other side of the Atlantic, Deep Purple watching that with great interest.
Yep. And you can hear on their first album, they were doing Vanilla Fudge. Hush was their big hit, and that was a redo of somebody else's song.
That's right.
In their own way, But what we did a little different than they did. We base it from the lyric. If you take Hanging On, so it's set me free, why don't you, babe? Get out of my life. It's like like that.
Yeah.
And, when we listened to Mark and Timmy will listen to it and say, man, we should slow this down, get some emotion in those lyrics, and that's what we did. You take Eleanor Rigby, the Beatles, Eleanor Rigby, in the church when there's nobody, no one is it, right?
Yeah.
We took the whole church cemetery vibe, and put it into our version of the song, Eerie. We made the song Eerie. People get ready. Sounds like a gospel song to us.
Yeah.
It like a gospel song with all the big harmony and the organ.
Yeah.
That's how we approach songs. Like Ticket to Ride was also like a hurting song. We slowed it down, gave it more emotion.
Yeah, and it works so well, because I think Purple did it with Help by the Beatles. They slowed that right down, and that's when when I first discovered Vanilla Fudge, I realized,
yeah. Well, Richie said in many interviews that he wanted Deep Purple to be a English version of Vanilla Fudge, and they went beyond that and bypassed us. We had the unfortunate second album of ours, which was horrible. It was a concept album that Ahmet Ertegun, who owned Atlantic Records, and our producer Shadow Morton, they decided to do this concept album for a second album. It was so stupid. We should have did like everybody else did. We should have did everybody else did their second album just like their first album. We didn't do that. So
you gained
momentum. It cut the momentum of the band moving forward,
Yeah. But Rock and Roll was a good album. That's actually probably one of my favorites by you. Yeah.
That was a good album, but by then the momentum was shot. The band was breaking up by then,
True.
I mean, when you had the first album went to number 4, and then a year later the single went to number 4. And we were on the Ed Sullivan Show, first band ever to go on the show without a smash single, because we had a smash album. We were the first band to break the top 10 in America without a big album. It was a big single, I'm sorry. we had all that going for us. All we had to do was the same thing the second time. The second album came out, and people heard it like on the strength of the first album in San Francisco. In those days, you used to play a whole side of an album. And it was so, I don't know if you ever heard that album. It's horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, the people put one side one on, and by the end of it, they were calling the radio station to take it off. They're taking acid. Take it off. I'm going on a bad trip. And then that happened all over the country.
Wow.
The album broke in at like, I don't know, number 20, went up to number 15, and immediately fell down the other way. We had to rush in and do another album, which we did Renaissance, and we did originals on there, except Season of the Witch, which became a big song for us.
Yeah, it's a good one.
We had songs in the can. We had songs that we did, like One More Heartache by Marvin Gaye and Season of the Witch and a few other ones we had. All we had to do was finish those, do a couple more, and release them, but we didn't, So the third album we did was, it was really oh man, it was just a rush job. And the mixes weren't good. Shadow Morton mixed it. That's the last album we did with him. And then the fourth album had Shotgun on it, which was a good single. It went up top 20. And then we were on the Ed Sullivan Show again with that. And then we had the long side on the break song, which showed all the versatility in the solos of everybody. And then my drum solo influenced a lot of drummers in those days. As I met friends of mine now who are like drummers, and back then they were saying, my God, when we heard that solo and the sound of the drums, I had the big Ludwig drums, same drums I got for Bonzo, and we were just trying to keep it going, and then by rock and roll, we were trying, we just did it. We recorded it separately because me and Tim wanted to play with Jeff Beck at the time. We had already gotten a letter from Bonzo at a gig we did, and said that Jeff wanted to play with me and Tim, and we wanted to play with him too. So we kind of were breaking the band up to do that.
But of course, in between that, because that was to come just a few years later, it was obviously the band Cactus, well, it was because it was going to be Cactus with Jeff and Rod. But Rod didn't want to work with Jeff, and it was going to be with Jeff. And then Jeff was coming over, and then he got in a car accident. 18 months later, he surfaced. We said, "Oh, we ain't going to wait 18 months, man. We just blew out Vanilla Fudge to do this, So let's try the next best thing. Let's get an American guitar player." So we got Jim McCarty, who was with Mitch Ryder and Detroit Wheels, and he was one of like America's great guitar players. And he recommended Rusty Day from the Amboy Dukes. I played with Ted Nugent. Yeah.
So it's like, it all folds together. We all ended up friends. So
because Jim McCarty is an exceptional guitarist. I know he still works with you. He doesn't play live now, but he still works with you in the studio, doesn't he?
Well, he plays live around Detroit area where he lives. Right. He can't take the road. He's the kind of dude, he works, plays a club and get home at 2 or 3 in the morning. He'll stay up till 6 a.m. screwing around. Then he'll go to bed and he'll wake up at 3 in the afternoon. So we had him on the road for a while, and it was miserable because he wants to get up at 3 in the afternoon. But we have to be in the van or in the bus or whatever, or fly by like 10 o'clock.
Right.
So he just couldn't make it. So he finally said, look, you like to do this stuff, so you take it. You take over Cactus. So I said, okay. So then it was me, Tim, and whatever guitar player we had at the time.
Yeah.
And then Tim didn't want to do it anymore. And then it was just me. I had a great band, a great Cactus band for a while. And then, things got weird with the singer, and the guitar player got really ill, which was Paul Warren, who played with Rod for 14 years. He was a tremendous guitar player.
Yeah.
And then 2 years ago, we put a new version of the band together with Bobby Rondinelli's brother, Teddy, who I worked with Vanilla Fudge years ago.
Yeah.
And we did, like 8 shows. It was sounding great with a new singer who was an English singer, 35-year-old guy named Jim Stapley. And he was awesome, played harmonica, played guitar, and sang his butt off. And Teddy, for some reason, he bowed out. I said, I'm going to get my buddy Artie that played with me with my brother, you know. So he's in the band now, and James Caputo is still same bass player. So we're going to do some dates now, but now Jim Staple got busy with other people because, you know, Cactus is not a full-time working band, you know. So he, you know, he had to make a living. He has to do this and that and the other stuff. So I just got my friend Ed Terry, who's a monster singer also. So he's going to do some dates we have in July. The first 3 dates, Tony Franklin's going to play bass. Because Tony played bass
with Blue Murder.
Us. Yeah, he played bass with us in, what was it, about 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. We went to, maybe a little longer. We went to South America, and our bass player, I think it was Tim at the time, couldn't go. So Tony went. So when I called Tony this time, I said, you still have those notes that you always take when you play with somebody and the songs? He goes, yeah. I go, good, because I want you to play with Cactus again. He said, oh, yeah, I got all those notes. So he comes in, we'll have a quick rehearsal at my house. We're all staying at my house. And then we'll go into the studio the next day at a rehearsal place. We'll have a rehearsal. Then we go hit the road with Cactus and Foghat for one show.
That'll be
then
good.
We do a show on our own. And then the next show is with Cactus, Foghat, and Pat Travis.
Oh.
You know, that's good. And then 2 weeks after that, we got about 4 or 5 of our own shows, which will have our regular bass player and this new guitar player and the singer, replacement singer. But it's still Cactus. No matter who I use, it's still Cactus because we play those songs. Cactus is the songs. And if you interpret those songs and play them and kick ass, it's still Cactus, you know?
Because when you were obviously a bunch of young guys in Cactus, you know, the late 60s, you know, this period of time, you're in a band, you can't imagine that in decades into the future, people are going to be talking about what you're doing. You're doing your rehearsals, playing a few gigs. And in fact, you know, with everything that was going on around that time, Led Zeppelin were pouring forwards, and in the UK, although there were bands like Grand Funk Railroad, they didn't really make any inroads to the UK. We were it was all very Purple, The Who, everything else. Maybe Mountain had made a little bit of a blip, and Montrose would make a bigger one in 73. And Cactus was a band that had sort of gone by the time I was looking around to see what to listen to. But I did more and more interviews that I read, people would say I was influenced by Cactus, those first Cactus albums. And as the years have gone by, now looking at your Temple of Blues album, the guest list is like a who's who for rock music, isn't it? The amount of people you've got on this album, and they're all Cactus fans, which shows the influence you had.
You know what's really funny? The way the whole thing evolved, it came from Brian Pereira, who owns Cleopatra Records. You know, we're friends. We've had a few Cactus records on the label, and they do well. So he came to me with the idea. He said, what do you think about an album of all the people who were influenced by Cactus and playing all the old songs redone? Can you think you can do that? I said, yeah, I can do that. I mean, I did the Guitar Zeus record. You could do anything, you know? So I said, yeah, I can do that. So we started getting together. We put together a budget, started getting together. And the funny thing is, I live in Florida with a guest house that we turned into a studio. So I have my drums in there. And I said, well, how am I going to start doing this? This is going to be crazy. So I said, let me start with the drums, which you really don't start with drums. You usually put drums on after a guitar and a vocal with a click, because it's all going to be done on the internet.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So the first song I did was Parchment Farm. I got the click up for 247 beats per minute, which is pretty fast.
Yeah.
That's the same tempo we had in 1970. When everyone heard that, they go, oh my God.
No.
You know, even Joe Bonamassa on here, he said it blew his brains out. That's how we got him on there. So I'm over there thinking in my head, here's how it goes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm playing and close my eyes. Sitting over here in a Parchment Farm. I'm singing it to myself and playing it. I did that song and I did one way or another like that. And then I said, man, I can't do another 12 songs like this. Got to be a better way. So after thinking about it, I said, I'm going to put a click down. Instead of thinking about it, I'm going to sing it on the machine, on my Cubase. So like for Evil, I would go bam, bam, drums, down, 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 drums, down, 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 one way from home, down, down. I did the whole song like that. Okay, here's a solo, bam, the second part of the solo, back to the verse, well, maybe, and I did the whole song, like 4 or 5 minutes of that to every song. Now I got something to play to.
Wow.
It's very, very crazy, but it worked,
Because I know we just said earlier that things like Hot for Teach and all those kind of rocks, a lot of rock songs in the 80s were influenced by Parchment Farm. When you did that, you weren't looking back and thinking, oh, that sounds good. I'll have a go at that. How did you take a song at that period in time in that direction?
Well, number one, you talked about Need Love.
Yeah.
Need Love was similar but slower.
Right.
The groove on them.
Yeah.
So when we used to rehearse, we just started jamming that thing, We started jamming it. And then Rusty started singing.
And that was it.
I didn't even realize it was a blues song. I thought we wrote it. Because I'm not really a guy that sat down and listened to all these old blues. And Tim and Jim used to do that. Yeah, I was more into the jazz, the Gene Krupas and all that stuff. And anything at the time that was cool, rock wise, I'd listen to it. I'd listen to Zeppelin, I'd listen to the Who, because I like Keith Moon's parts and all that. And I listened to R&B and Motown, but those guys listened to the blues. So, we started playing. I don't know if I started that groove, and they started playing, and then Rusty started sitting over here in the Parchment Farm. And I stopped, and he sang, and it just came together. So when the album came out to the credits, I saw Mose Allison on the credit. I go, "Who's Mose Allison?" I thought we wrote this. I mean, really, it could have been anything. It could have been any lyric on there. It could have been whatever,
Yeah.
It would have been the same reaction.
It's very true, isn't it? You could have had a different lyric and you would have had all the royalties because it didn't sound...
Exactly. But, same thing with the Can't Judge a Book and... Anyhow, but, the ones that were original were killer songs, Brother Bill, what a great song. It just got added to, I think it's like 67 stations around America, on a country kind of vibe.
Well, I mean, the idea of taking a band's back catalogue and having lots of guest bass players, guitarists and people on it is not a new idea. But what I would like to say at this point is I've listened to this in advance, and this really works. Every single track, it makes you realize just how
that's what everybody's telling me.
Work.
Yeah. So that's what everybody's telling me, all the interviewers. But here's something you probably don't even realize. A Van Halen song, Eruption?
Yes.
It's not a song.
Yes,
Not a song. It's just guitar. Yeah. Well, guess what? That was from Cactus also.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If you listen to the beginning of the song, Let Me Swim, it goes, guitar, and then stop, and then it goes into the song. Ours was shorter, but it's the same chords, same structure. Okay?
Yeah.
I never listened to Eruption. When Van Halen came out, I was with Rod Stewart. I didn't listen much to Van Halen back in those days. But I've been hearing about this guy, Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
And then I found out there was such big Cactus fans. I got tapes somewhere, cassettes of them playing Cactus songs, with David Lee Roth singing, and, they're playing our songs. So there's Evil, right? And one of the songs was saying, Sammy Hagar, they did the second part of the Evil solo in one of their songs, that build-up part. There's that Eruption thing, and there's Parchment Farm. So Cactus had a big influence on them.
That's really interesting, yeah.
Even Eddie, I told Eddie, we're talking on the phone with him, and I said, "Hey, Eddie, we're just putting Vanilla Fudge together." He goes, F and Ella Fudge, put Cactus together. I mean, he they really loved Cactus. And, it's an honor to me that they honored Cactus and they love Cactus, But if you listen to the new version of Swim, so I extended that intro.
Yeah, it's Doug Aldridge, isn't it, on guitar on that one? It's brilliant.
Exactly. I needed somebody that can be as good or as fast and as, mind-blowing as Eddie was on that Eruption.
Yeah.
And I said, Doug, you got to play this song because that intro is like Eruption, and that's you, brother.
Yeah,
so
and he plays
said, okay.
He plays it really, really well.
But you know what's really funny? I call these people. That's why we call it, and friends. Not just the influences and friends. Because I call people up as friends, and I found out that Cactus influenced them, like Doug Aldridge. Malcolm Mendoza to play with Whitesnake. He even does a little thing at the beginning with Tim goes, doo-doo-doo, which Tim was always silly doing stuff like that. And he did it. And I said, oh my God, this guy. So I talked to him. I said, were you a Cactus fan? He goes, oh yeah, man. Kidding me? Tim Bogert? Cactus? You guys killed it. Warren Haynes. I didn't know Warren Haynes was into Cactus, and Joe Bonamassa. That was the one, I did his podcast and he said, when I heard Parchment Farm, you blew my brains out. I said, well, listen, we're doing this thing. I'd love for you to play on Parchment Farm. Would you do it? He goes, yes. And now I had him on his podcast, so he had to do it,
Yeah.
But he's a good guy. He does a lot of favors for people. I mean, me and Tim were going to have him play with us as Bonamassa, Bogert Appice, instead of Beck Bogert Appice.
Yeah.
I don't know, 2004, 2005. We did at the NAMM show, we did a video of Superstition, still on the internet, still on YouTube. And his manager said, no, we were booking gigs for good sized money. His manager said, he can't do it. It doesn't fit into what we're doing, our plan. I said, me and Tim would go, what could his plan be? 2 or 3 years later, he was huge. Don't know what he did.
But that was his plan.
We don't know how they did it because there's no radio.
Yeah.
There's no radio in nothing. I don't know how any bands make it today.
Yeah.
I got young kids that live up the block from me, and they say, hey, have you heard this band? They just sell 10,000 people and they sold out. I never heard of them, But there's so many, probably you too. There's so many of these bands. Somehow they make it on the internet.
That's true. You mentioned that Warren Haynes was also on it, and he plays on probably the best track he could have played on for his style. No need to worry.
Yes, well, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
I knew how I had to do that song again, starting with the drums. So think about that. You see how open that song is.
Yes. Yeah.
I sang it on the click. I played to it, and then I sent it to Jorgen, who unfortunately not in Government Mule anymore, but he was in Government Mule for, I don't know, 15 years.
Yeah.
I gave it to him. This was before he was still in the band when I gave it to him. And he did it. He said, I'm going to play it like I know where Warren will build it up and give it energy, and we're going to follow you. I said, okay. So he did the bass. After we did the bass, and we gave it to Warren. It took a few minutes, a few days or a couple of months for him to do it. When he did it, he did the vocal and guitar at the same time.
Wow.
That's why there's that great interplay between the voice and the guitar. Yeah, but he's tremendous. His voice is undeniably great. And the guitar playing is great. And I said, he's got to do the blues. Who else could I get? I could do the blues. I could have got somebody to play guitar, then you get a singer. I said, well, let me get Warren. And then I found out he was a Cactus guy. But I was always doing stuff for them. Like every New Year's Eve, they would play with Government Mule at the Beacon Theater in New York City. They play New Year's Eve and the day before.
Yeah.
And my wife has an apartment around the corner, 2 blocks away. So they'd always call me, are you in town? I go, yeah, come on down, play with us. Play one song with us. I'd always go and play. For 6 years I did this. We played Superstition, You Keep Me Hanging On, Hot Legs, all the songs I've been, Parchment Farm, all the songs I was involved in, Evil, and it was great. Every time they announced me in the States of New York, my hometown, the audience would, love it. and we play, and we became good friends with the band from doing that. So I never asked Warren to play on anything of mine. This was the first time. So,
was there anybody that you wanted to have on the album that wasn't available? Or
yeah, I wanted Steve Morse, but unfortunately his wife was really ill.
Yeah, of course.
And he couldn't do it. And since then his wife passed away. It took me a year to do this thing.
Of course. Well, yeah, I can imagine it must have done, yeah.
It's like, get this guy, get that guy. But the interesting one was Dee Snider,
Yeah, on Evil, yeah. Gosh, yeah, he really does a good number on that.
Great job. One of my students of old, Joe Franco, played with him in Widowmaker.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me that they used to do Evil. And I heard about that, but I never heard it. So I went online and listened to it. So first of all, I called Joe back and said, "You're playing the wrong drum part, first of all." I said, "Yeah, but D would be great. He sounds really great on Evil." He said, "Well, call him." I had his number. He said, "Call him. I'm sure he'll gladly do it." So when I called him, I said, "I want you to sing Evil." He's not even a hesitation. I'm in.
Straight in.
Yeah, and I knew he was a Cactus fan. Same thing with Doug Pinnick and Ty Tabor. I knew they were Cactus fans because when I toured with Blue Murder, Billy Squire, and King's X, I went on their bus and they were playing Cactus. So we talked and everything. That's how I got them on my Guitar Zeus. So I knew they would do this. I called them and said, "I want you to do this. Doug, I want you to play bass on Evil, and I want you to sing and play bass on One Way or Another with Ted Nugent." And he said, "Great." And I called Ted. Ted always loved McCarty, always loved Cactus. We toured together. We were managed by the same manager for a long time. Me and Ted have been friends since 1967.
Yeah.
So I just had to call him. I said, "I want you to play on Cactus." He said, "I'm in." I said, "What song?" He goes, "One Way or Another." I said, "Okay, you got it." So it was that kind of vibrations, and Rudy Sarzo, the same thing. Billy Sheehan, he said, "I would do anything when Tim passed away, anything you need me to do to celebrate Tim, I'm in." So I said, "You got to play Parchment Farm. And then you got to play Oleo and do a Tim Bogert bass solo." He said, "Okay." You heard it. It's freaking fantastic.
It is fantastic.
I listened to it. It sounds like Tim.
It does, doesn't it? It does. Sounds
like Tim. I said, wow. When I first heard it, I was blown away. I called Billy up. I said, "Man, you pinned it. I mean, you got the stuff in the regular band. Then when you hit the fuzz tone, damn,
Yeah.
And then the same thing. I called Steve Stevens.
Oh,
he was a friend. I thought he was a friend. He said, "No, man, I'm from Brooklyn. I love Cactus." I said, "Wow, this is unbelievable. I didn't know all these people were influenced by Cactus. It was really cool." So then, once we got the whole album done, so I'm getting these things called Bands in Town every day about Foghat. Now Roger Earl and his wife Linda are friends of mine. So I called him. I said, "What's the deal with it?" I said, "We are marketing it as a blues album, and we're on the top 10 of the Billboard blues charts." I said, "Wow." I said, but thinking to myself, there's no more blues than Cactus is,
Yeah.
So
very true.
So now they were number one. Robin Trower was number one on the blues charts, and these guys used to be on the regular charts with Cactus. So I called the label. I said, "You know what? We should market this as a blues album.
Temple of Blues.
Foghat and Robin Trower, because it is blues.
It is.
It's blues rock. It's always been blues rock." So that's Brian again. He said, the one that gave me the idea to do this. He said, "Let's call it Temple of Blues." I said, "Let's call it Temple of Blues, Influences and Friends." He says, "Great." So we already had the album cover, which I wanted to be like Sgt. Pepper.
Certainly.
And when he did that, first did it, he had all the outfits on like Sgt. Pepper. I said, "No, man, I don't mean exactly like Sgt. Pepper. I mean, just have everybody that was involved in the album on the cover." So we had that already. So then we had Temple of Blues. We said, "Okay, make it in a temple, make everything temple on the album cover, on the inserts, everything's a temple now." So we did that. I said, "Wow, now it's a great package." So we went Temple of Blues, and guess what? when we first started promoting this, it was number 17 on the Amazon pre-order blues charts, and then it went up to number 6.
Well, it's.
Right?
I mean, is it a double? Is it a double vinyl album?
It's a double vinyl and red vinyl.
Yeah,
Red vinyl,
15 tracks, aren't there? And
Yeah.
I know there's a bonus track of Guiltless Glider. One features Bumblefoot on guitar, and the other one is Tim Ripper Owens from Priest.
Well,
Isn't it?
they both have Bumblefoot on guitar, but the difference
vocal.
is Ripper Owens. I played with Judas Priest.
Yeah.
I met him at a party. Nico McBrain has a rib place in Florida.
Yeah.
And every year he has an anniversary jam. So I jam with him pretty much the last 2 years. And, he had different singers. He had Ripper Owens. This year he had Joey Jorgensen, So when I met Ripper, I said, dude, I'm doing this Cactus album. Would you want to sing something? He goes, yeah, man, I love Cactus. I said, well, pick another one. So I'm thinking, well, what song is good for him? Because he's like a heavy metal guy. So I said, I already had my singer on Guiltless Glider, and he sounded great singing it more like Rusty. So I said, let me try it. So I gave him Guiltless Glider because it was kind of a strange song. It wasn't like your straight ahead song. And Bumblefoot was on it. Bumblefoot's not your normal everyday guitarist. He has the double neck.
Yeah.
With the slide, the fretless guitar and the regular guitar. I love Bumblefoot. He's played on so many things of mine. I keep telling him I owe you, and he never calls me. And one day he'll call me, and I owe him like 5 tracks. But so we gave it to him, and he sent back his version. I went, oh my God, what a difference! Have you heard both versions?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
His vocal is so evil.
Yeah.
It's really evil sounding, which fits the song.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I don't want to leave Jimmy on my singer up because his is a good version too. So let's just do the Ripper Owens one as a bonus track because it really makes it sound so different.
No, good call.
And I get to play a drum solo twice.
Yes, indeed. If possible, I'd like to mention, you mentioned it just before we started recording, this box set.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Beck Bogert Appice.
I think we got everything on the Cactus album.
Yeah, this is just marvelous. And why it feels so special to me is that you don't realize when you're a music fan that if you're in a band and the band splits up and you might have recorded things and it sits back in the background, never released, you just move on in your life. But
yeah.
I was lucky to speak to Ben Findlay, who did the mixing on this. And he told me that
I mixed it with him.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, I didn't know what to expect. I thought
he would do a mix and send it to me. And I'd say, well, I need a little more drums, a little more guitar, and then send it back to him. Then he played to Jeff. And he'd do the same thing. So
the fact that Jeff, it's great that Jeff was still around when this was happening, but that live in London, 1974, to hear what obviously were going to be tracks from your second album, to me, it's like the bridge between rock and jazz rock. It's that you can see where Jeff was going.
I was on Blow by Blow originally.
Were you?
Yes, I was.
Aha.
I'm the one that turned Jeff on to this jazz rock because we used to travel together in Europe. I would drive in the car, me and Jeff. Either Jeff drove or I drove, and I'd be playing Mahavishnu Orchestra and Billy Cobham albums.
Oh,
and Jeff
wow.
would go, whoa, this is cool. This is cool. I said, yeah, it's cool. And so when BBA broke up, we said, well, Tim had a falling out with Jeff. That's what made it break up. So, but me and Jeff were still good friends. So I said, maybe we should we should do an album like that, So I went to London on my own dime. I stayed there 3 months and I worked with Jeff, putting these songs together with Phil Chen. That's when I met Phil Chen, right? Which I later was in the Rod Stewart group with him. And we put all these songs together. Scatterbrain started off with my drum groove that I put together. And, I actually probably co-wrote 2 or 3 of the songs with them because we did it as a band, And, but the manager at the time, Ernest Chapman, said, well, we don't know if this is going to be a Jeff Beck solo album or a Beck Appice album. So in the end, it ended up being a Jeff Beck album. So the deal was, we were both signed to Epic. And I said, well, can we do Jeff Beck featuring me? And then I would get my advance from Epic.
Yeah.
And we'd all be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, no, we just want this to be. He's never had a Jeff Beck album. It's always been Jeff Beck Group or the Yardbirds or BBA. It was never just a Jeff Beck album, So it ended up, I ended up not being on it, and they took me off, And my manager said, well, we don't want you on there. You just came out of an equal bill, with Jeff Beck. We don't want you to be a side man to Jeff, So I said, I was kind of pissed because I loved the music. Meanwhile, I got a solo album with CBS that never really came out on CBS, doing the same kind of stuff, except same kind of stuff. And I had some vocals on it.
Yeah.
And on that album, I had Verdine White from Earth, Wind & Fire and Dick Wagner and a couple other named jazz rock guys,
Yeah.
And so that album never came out with me on it, but it came out as Blow by Blow, and it sold well.
You did?
And I used to go see Jeff, and Bernard Purdy did the tour, and I heard Bernard playing the drum parts that I kind of created, and I was kind of pissed, because I never got the songwriting I deserved. I never got anything up, but only recently I realized if I would have been with Jeff in those days, I never would have been with Rod. Okay?
Yeah.
My career with Rod took me to new heights, because Jeff was playing, 3,000 seaters, 4,000. With Rod, we were playing stadiums and, 6 nights at the Forum, 20,000 a night, And I co-wrote "Do You Think I'm Sexy" and Young Turks, and
yeah, because your career, wherever you land, whichever decade you land in, you're there. Somewhere you're there. I mean, and you've managed to, as musical fashions have changed, whatever they are, you've adapted. So as you say, it's from Vanilla Fudge to Cactus to BBA to Rod Stewart, and then you've done work with Rick Derringer, and then of course King Cobra. You've managed, obviously Blue Murder as well. And what's also amazing is a lot of these bands have also reformed, and the names are still in people's consciousness because you've actually continued to do projects based on your musical legacy, haven't you?
Yes, that was pretty good. The whole thing. For me, I didn't know what I was doing. I just, said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I do it. After that, I played, I did Photograph, which really was nothing with, who was that? The other Whitehead. Well, I did that for 2 years. And then I went to, I got a deal with Robots for Europe. And that's when I started doing my Guitar Zoo stuff,
which is great, yeah.
Which I did 2 albums, and I did the regular albums for America, and then I did the stuff for Japan. I did a Japanese version. I did a Korean version. By then, I spent the whole 90s in Japan because the 90s here were all full of
very very awkward.
All full of all that like.
Yeah,
those bands from Seattle.
That's right.
And then I did the last one in Japan. I mean, in Japan with me, Tim Bogert, and this guitar player. He was like a big Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
So we had played the Budokan. We played 4 days in Tokyo. After that, we had like 15,000 people, and we did a little tour of Japan. And that's how I spent the 90s. I ended in Japan at that point. I came back in the early 2000s playing with Vanilla Fudge at like 3,000 seat theaters. And then I just came with Vanilla Fudge, and we did Cactus and Vanilla Fudge, and me and my brother played together, and we did some of that. Now we're not playing big arenas anymore. We're playing like 600, 700 seat, 800 seat clubs. But, the main thing is I did it all,
And just mention this album. You obviously, this is another almost DBA with Rick Derringer. That was around 2000.
Yes,
that's with Tim on there as well. Great album, isn't it?
It was a great album, and we did gigs. I took Rick Derringer. We went to Japan in 1982.
Yeah,
it was me, Tom Peterson, Rick Derringer, Eric Carmen, and Dwayne Hitchings.
All right.
And we did a little of everybody's, songs. And we played the Budokan and sold out. We did another couple of gigs and sold out. And we came to America, and who didn't want to do it? No, Eric Carmen didn't want to do it. So we did, was it Tom Peterson? No, we did Derringer. We did Tim Bogert on bass instead of Tom Peterson, Dwayne Hitchings, and me, the four of us. We did a whole tour. And at that point, I started doing these things called the drum offs. I started a lot of things that were stolen from me and went big. Like the drum off was an idea I had to have. I worked for Mattel Electronics. I had a little electronic drum. So I was their sponsor there. They were my sponsor, and I was their spokesperson. And I did big things with that. I did this one drum off, we called it, in the park. We had 10,000 people there. I had Buddy Rich was one of my judges. I had all the guys from, that were popular. My brother, all the guys from Heart, Michael DeRocha, and Phil from and Jocko from Shana. I mean, I can't remember all the bands. But we had 10,000 people there, and me and Buddy played, and nobody wanted to follow Buddy. I followed Buddy. Buddy was a thing. We got in a helicopter when he was playing in Disneyland. So I did all this crazy stuff with the drum offs. I did 5 years of drum offs. I never got paid for it. I just did it to find some drummers. I found Eric Singer was one in my drum off. He number third. He got turned on to. I turned him on to leader, and then he's playing with Kiss, and we were good friends. And there's so many of the guys went on to do good things. Even what's his name from the original drummer from Guns N' Roses. He was in my drum off. He didn't even make anything. 2 years later, he was in Guns N' Roses. And then after I took a year rest. Next thing I know, next year, Guitar Center asked me if I wanted to be a judge in their drum off. I go, no, it's my drum off. So I'm going to be judging your drum. Before you know it, they did it all over. They had all the ones around the country, and they did it all around the country. And finally, one of the last ones they did, they wanted me to be a judge, and get an award. And I said, I'll only get an award if you tell everyone that I started these, right? And that I'd be the godfather of the drum off kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they did, and they gave me an award. I got in my studio in my house in Florida. I have, my studio's in my guest house.
Yeah.
That's where I did all the drums for all these albums that we're talking about now. And I got the award on the wall, so I got all the awards and the gold records. My wife won't let me take them in the house. She says, too many.
Do you this album, I think you made this after Rod, wasn't it? Party Tested? I
love that record.
Isn't it great?
I love that record.
It's one of my favorites.
One of my favorite songs is the song that wrote itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was my idea. I said, we had the groove. I said lyrically, what do we do? I said, why don't we talk about how to write a song, and call it something like, songwriting song. So we got together, and I forgot what Randy Bishop was helping us with lyrics, and we wrote this song, and it was great. What a great concept, and the song was killer. The sound of the song was great.
It's just such a fun album.
It is fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Very
Party
much.
Tested with the stamp.
Yeah. It's
you got a stamp. Party Tested, and his drums in it, and some of it was a little lame, couple of, but Doctors of the Universe, great song, great video.
No, it's really, really good. And obviously,
it was doing great on that label Boardwalk.
Yeah.
And then they went bankrupt. I mean, they had Joan Jett. We were right.
Yes, that's right.
Next to Joan Jett. Joan Jett was here. We were like coming up right next to them.
Yeah.
And it would have been big.
Yes.
And they went out of business.
Yeah. And obviously,
story of my life.
Well, King Cobra were very successful, and I know it's not that long ago you've done another King Cobra album, because I was lucky to speak to Carlos.
I keep that going just to
Keep it ticking over.
Just to keep it going. Like the last
yeah.
album we did, we did it for Cleopatra. It didn't do anything. They gave us a budget. If you broke down an hourly wage, me and Paul Shortino probably made 3 cents an hour.
Yeah.
But as I told the guys in the King Cobra band, everybody but Mark Free's now a woman. I talk to once a year, twice a year.
Yeah.
And like she's doing nothing. And voice as great as that, doing nothing.
It's a shame.
And the last album, Mick and Dave, the guitarists, didn't want to do anything. Mick works now at Universal for paints for Union in the movies, and Dave works for what's that big ticketing company, a Ticketron or whatever.
Yeah, I know.
Computer stuff, and they didn't want to do it. So I said, "Well, we'll get somebody else." We got Carlos Cavazzo, the Quiet Riot, and the dude from the Dio band, Rob. I forgot his name now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we did the record. It took a while, and it came out. We did a killer video.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, it's good.
The video's killer. It was like a what do you call it? It's like
that's the one on the tube, like on a tube train.
It's like a row. Yeah. It's like a row. I forgot what they call it. Where you put everything in place. There's a video here. Put it in. It looks like it's right there. Look, we all look like we did it together, but we didn't.
Yeah, but you weren't, were you? No.
It was a great video. Yeah, it sold a few. It didn't sell enough to pay the label back. Yeah, but I do a lot of stuff at Cleopatra. That's why this Cactus record happened,
Yeah.
But but that BBA record you were talking about before, when we finished, my manager, Bruce Pilato, wrote the 10,000 word booklet.
It's fantastic.
And we sent it to him on a Sunday, and we didn't get any answer. I said, why are we not getting an answer? On Wednesday, we found out that Jeff died.
Yeah.
I went, what? That was unbelievable. He was the best. I mean, by far, all those guys, Clapton, Page, Jeff. Clapton, Page stayed the same. Jeff just kept progressing.
He was amazing. Well, it was like Miles Davis, wasn't he, of guitar?
Yeah. He was always progressing.
Yeah, never stopped. Yeah.
Even like when we played with him, me and him would sit there and we'd listen to Marv Richt and all his jazz rock albums. And one thing on that album called Jizz Whiz, right? That was the introduction. That was the bridge between BBA and Blow by Blow. It has all these time signatures and instrumental. And that was my influence, in bringing that stuff to Jeff and starting with that. I said, let's do an instrumental, and we did that. It's got all these weird timings and melodies and then drum solos and guitar solos, and it was a killer track. And then the other thing called Solid Lifter, which builds into Jizz Whiz, and so the whole piece was like an instrumental thing. That was the future of Jeff,
Totally agree. You might have been asked this question before, just thinking, because as I bring the interview to the close and I want to focus on Temple of Blues, obviously the Cactus album, which comes out obviously on the 7th of June, with all the guests you had on it, did you at any point think maybe I could get John Sykes to play on this?
No.
Okay.
No, because John don't want to play anything from what I understand. I mean, I talked to him every once in a while. I'll send an email, he'll email back, and then you email a second time and he won't email it anymore. But, at one point, I think it was Tony that told me, he said to me, he don't like the way the business is today. He says, with the Spotify, I agree.
Yeah.
Spotify, I won't have Spotify. I don't listen to Spotify. I mean, it rips the sauce.
True.
0.003 cents or 0.0003 cents per song, you don't make any money. You'd have like 1 million hits and you make $3,000 or $30,000 or something.
Yeah.
It's just not fair. So he's not in the business no more. And I think, he's set up anyway. He's got a house in Northridge, California. He's got a studio. I don't know what he does with his life. I mean, for me, I live in Florida. People go, do you play golf? I said, no, I don't. They said, well, what do you do? I said, I play drums. And that's what I do, all the time.
You do?
Either I'm practicing on the pad, or I'm recording some stuff, or, I don't play on the drums for a while because I don't like just going on the drums and playing, you know. If I got a track to play to, create a track, that to me is playing more fun. You
Yeah.
know, if I'm going to rehearse for a tour with somebody, that's fine. But just going in, you know, I've been playing 60 years, you know, what am I going to practice?
Yeah.
You know, there might be a couple of riffs I might, like there's some riffs I heard on the internet that I liked. I'm going to, when I go home, right now I'm in the Caribbean right now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in St. Martin. So when I go home, I'm going to practice a couple of things, you know. But then in a week, I got to practice with King Cobra. I mean, with Cactus.
Yeah.
Cactus, and then we got these gigs to do, and then I have a Rod show as well.
Oh,
I got a guy that looks like Rod, sounds like Rod, and he's got the moves like Rod.
God, yeah.
Everything.
Everything.
And I had a show last year of my own, and the guy, I did it 15 years ago. I've been to China with it. I've been to all different places with it. But the guy that I did it with last year, he's kind of gotten older, and you know, he just don't move around like he used to. And the band I had was some people that played with Rod. You know, I had Jimmy Crespo play with Rod. I had Danny Johnson play with Rod. I had Phil Chen that played with Rod. I had me and the keyboard player played with Billy Squire. And we went to China. We went to all these different places. And then Phil didn't want to be in a tribute band, you know. I said, dude, it's not a tribute band. We were part of the band.
Yeah.
We're just giving Rod tribute from ourselves, you know. And he didn't want to do it. So we got Kenny Aronson to play bass. And then little by little, I didn't have an agent that could book it, you know. That faded away, and I started doing other things. So then I went to see Rod 2 years ago, and I noticed he did 12 songs. 8 of the 12 songs were the ones I was involved in.
Wow.
I said, man, I never get to play these songs anymore. So I tried to put another one together. I did with local guys. They weren't like name guys. They were just local guys. We did 4 gigs, and I realized this is not happening. So I blew it out. So a few months later, I heard about this guy because I was helping him. He was looking for an agency in Europe. His name was Rob Cordell, right? And he was looking for an agent in Europe. Now, this chick, Catra, sax player, played with Rod for 14 years. So she called me and said, this guy looking for help. Can you help him? I said, sure. So I've been talking to him. So after my Rod thing blew out, I was talking to him. I said, so where are you playing? Because I'm playing up at in the Villages, which is about 2 hours from me. So I said to my friend who has a limo company, I said, let's take one of your Escalades and go up there, spend the night and have a little fun. He goes, yeah. So we went up there, and he said, why don't you come up and play with us? Okay, so we put together 8 songs that I played on that I knew with no rehearsals or nothing. I went up, when he introduced me, the audience had 1,000 people there. The audience went freaking crazy. So we played the songs. By the end of the show, they were going nuts. So at the end of the show, he came up and he said, why don't we partner up with you? Why don't we be partners? I said,
yeah,
let's go. Because the band was great.
Yeah.
You know, but the band looked bland. So I started putting my 2 cents into the image of the band, you know, and I got them looking really good. But unfortunately, the drummer of the band was Rod, the singer's brother. He just passed away from having a surgery, and it was bad. But we broke it up into 2 sections. It was like first they would do what we call the wimpy Rod songs, you know, like Forever Young, and Some Guys Have All the Luck, and if I found that was the one, if I Love You Tonight, I forgot the name of it. Anyway, and then we take him intermission, and then he'd introduce me, and I come out, walk in the front, and I'd say, hey, how you doing? You know, Catcher here played with Rod 14 years. I played with Rod 7 years. So on the stage tonight, we have 21 years of Rod, you know? So we ready to rock here. And then we get him rocking, go back, start with Hot Legs, and we do Young Turks. Then we'll do Passion, you know, and then maybe we'll do You're in My Heart. And then we'll do Maggie May, Do You Think I'm Sexy? You know, all the big
ones. Yeah.
By the times we're done, people are going crazy, you know. So I said, let's do this. I said, let's do it. So now we organize it. We got my agent who books only big tributes. We got my manager, and just trying to figure out the merchandise, you know, because I had regular merchandise with black shirts and
Yeah.
You know, a heart, right? That said, "You're in my heart." A heart that says,
Yeah.
"Tonight's
Yeah.
the night." With women's black tank top, but I don't think they like black. You know,
Yeah.
so we're gonna get shirts with all the different songs. You know, "Passion" is like a pink one, and "Feeling I'm Sexy" is like a blue, light blue.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you
That's
know.
so you're doing gigs with that. I know you got Cactus gigs coming up,
Yep.
and obviously,
And Vanilla Fudge, we do that too.
but
So we're just spacing it out.
so
It's good. I love to play.
everything is in rotation.
Everything. My career, you know. I mean, they wanted us to do King Cobra gigs last year. I said no. You know, it doesn't make sense. I mean, financially, it didn't make sense. You know, I said by the time we're done, I'm not going to tell Carlos Cavazza we're going to do these gigs. You make $200. I said,
Yeah, very true.
forget about it. You know,
Do you just because of everything you've done and how you started? Do you think you'll ever do a jazz album?
I did a jazz album, a jazz rock album.
Yeah,
I did it. It's called what do I call it? I forgot the name of it now. I forgot the name of it.
it needs to be. Well, it needs to resurface. Yeah,
it's a jazz rock album. I got Verdine White on it.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
Said before.
Yeah.
I got him on it. I got Fernando Saunders on it. I got Max Middleton on it.
Wow.
You know,
Oh, look that up.
it was like a blow by blow jazz rock. You know.
Yeah.
Back in 1977, but then it was on CBS, and they said to me, "Well, you're not known for this, so we don't know if we want to release it." I said, "Come on, that's ridiculous, man."
Yeah.
You know.
No.
So Jeff Beck wasn't known for that, and
He wasn't, was he? That's
No.
it. That's
so
very true.
They never released it. I let it sit for 25 years. Then I just said, "I'm going to release it myself." I released it on my website. You know, like Carmine Appice merch.
Carmine Appice Net is your website. Are you
Yeah,
still?
but I did all that. I mean, it was a great record. You know, it was really a great record.
Yeah. Are you still involved with Little Kids Rock, your charity project?
Yeah, they're called now Music Cares.
Music Cares.
Yeah. So they're actually funny. They just sent me a itty bitty drum set. It's made of it's like a plastic, they do on the street. They have those buckets.
Yeah, I do.
So it was like a bucket, but everything fits in there. And they got the tom-tom with a piece of regular drum head on there. And the way it has two pieces of wood on it, you can stretch it and make a different sound.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing on. So you got two tom-tom, and you got a snare drum that has a little snare under it, you know, and then has a pedal that we push down, and it goes this way, you know, so it hits the bucket. And then you have a hi-hat that has a string. So it fits. I mean, it's really little.
Yeah.
You know? So they sent it to me. I've been messing with it. And they eventually want me to do like a little commercial for it. That's what they're planning to do. They're making 10,000 of them. They're going to give them out to different schools.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Where they can't afford drums. And, if you take a drum set in your little apartment where you got, a lot of people living in there, you can't afford it. And it's too loud. So these things are not that loud. Only up, space of that much,
Yeah.
So they're called Little Kids Rock. I'm involved in another one called Rocket, which is same kind of thing, except they're in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
They're based in New Jersey. They're just in New Jersey. And they got kids from up till 17 years old. And they go every day after school. They go in there and teach them. It's not like a charity. It's more like their parents pay money to do it. But it's me and little Steven and the bass player from Bon Jovi.
Oh, wow.
Different guys are involved in it.
Yeah.
And, there used to be a big theater involved, and now they moved it to like a school. And as a matter of fact, we just played a gig. Vanilla Fudge played in New York City, and Eddie Bogatti's involved there from the Rascals.
Yeah.
And they did a whole Rascal set. They had all these kids changing instruments, and I might have had 15 kids on the stage, But they did a great job, and they're doing great. When they turn 17 or 18, they can't be in it no more. But they learn a lot about it. So, so I've been involved with that as well. So those are the two I've been involved in, as well as I've done different charities. One called it was for breast cancer out in Texas.
Yeah.
So I did that. I mean, at one point when I was with Ozzy, I did these drum clinics, master classes every day, and I got like $1,500 a day, and I would give like $150, $200 a day to UNICEF, you know. And
Yeah.
by the end of doing that over a period of time, I had a check for them for $50,000.
Wow.
That I gave to them back in the '80s. You know.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of that stuff over my life, which is good. I like it. You know, I like doing that.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Carmine. I really, really appreciate it. And everybody watching and listening, Temple of the Blues by Cactus is out on June the 7th.
Yep.
It's out on CD and double vinyl. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's correct. And I'd like you to go listen to the intro to Let Me Swim.
Yes.
And think about Eruption.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that after
you could even compare them. You know?
Yeah. That's really, really interesting. Well, thank you very much for your time, and
thank you.
You know, and enjoy the rest of your week. And it's been lovely having you on the show.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Check up another. Thank you. Bye-bye. A huge thank you to my guest, Carmine Appice. What a wonderful guy, fantastic musician, and so much enthusiasm he has for his whole career. But this new album, Temple of Blues, dedicated to Cactus, an absolutely incredible band that I'm so glad I discovered. I discovered them so much later on for myself. But if you're new to rock music, a new music fan, check them out. And this album is a great way to do that. After that, you can bounce over to the Cherry Red box set that looks at Cactus. But this one features so many names: Bumblefoot, Billy Sheehan, Joe Bonamassa, Warren Haynes, Dee Snider. There's so many people on it. It's absolutely brilliant. Listen to Parchment Farm. Listen to that. But it was great to talk to Carmine about Vanilla Fudge, another great band, and they're going to have a box set soon from Cherry Red as well. And of course, Jeff Beck, BBA, Beck Bogert Appice, that box set, those albums, listen to those. It's just brilliant. And of course, all the work he did with Rod Stewart, Blue Murder, King Cobra, and Rick Derringer as well. Fantastic career, and he's still doing it now. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please check out the website at nowspinning.co.uk. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the podcast. Whatever your platform is, we are there. We're also on X, Facebook. We have a private Facebook group where you can talk and join in with other music fans from around the world who love CDs and vinyl. Wherever there's a social media channel, Now Spinning Magazine is also there. Music is the healer and the doctor. Please stay safe, keep spinning those discs, and I'll see you on the next episode.